We already got people coming in.
Oh,
Okay, Miss Hattie. Yes. Mm-hmm. That's why I told you that you Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for showing up today for the workshop. We're having a small technical difficulty. Give us 1 or 2 minutes and we will get started with you right away. Thank you so much for coming.
Okay, hello everyone. We are experiencing technical difficulties, but for the time being, I just wanted to welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Um, I give me Okay, sorry, I'm back. So I'm going to go ahead and display the survey that you guys will be taking before we complete the workshop. So I'm going to put that in the chat and then you guys can go ahead and take the survey. I hope you guys have been taking the survey, and if you guys have any questions about the survey, you can just put it in the chat and I'll answer them. Give me 1 second, guys, and then we can start. Okay, everyone, I'm so sorry for the technical difficulties. We're having some trouble with the Zoom, but we are ready to get started now. So I hope everyone went ahead and took the survey. If not, please finish that up because we are going to get started. Go ahead. PowerPoint. Okay. So for those who don't know me, my name is Minla Phillips. I just graduated from Lamar High School in June. And in the fall, I will be attending Howard University, where I will be majoring in psychology and minoring in English. And so I just want to thank you all for coming today. I really appreciate you hearing what I have to say, and I hope that it does help everyone in attendance. So I'm also a Girl Scout. I'm graduating out of Girl Scouts this year. And so a part of Girl Scouts is completing your Girl Scout Gold Award. And the purpose of my Gold Award is to focus on a problem that I am really passionate about, which is, oh, can you give me a second? So sorry. So sorry, everyone. Okay, so as I was saying, the purpose of my Gold Award is to focus on the problem which I have chosen to be youth unemployment in Houston. That is a very large problem, and I know that it can't be solved right away, but I would like to try one step at a time. So the purpose of my project is to inform not only teenagers, but also just young people in general about the job application process and just keep them ready to apply for a job and know the do's and don'ts of job readiness. So for the agenda today, we have two sessions and then we're going to have a Q&A session. So the first session is going to be about resumes, reference sheets, and applications. And we're going to have two Q&As with both of our HR professionals. They're going to be at separate times. And then we are going to have another session on interview information. So I have 4 steps here that will ensure that everyone is ready for a job and the job application process. So the first step that I have here is to get your paperwork ready. So with this, you just want to make sure that your resume and reference sheet are ready to go. So the first session is called debunking paperwork. Like I said, it is a guide to resumes, reference sheets, and applications. So I'm sure you're wondering, well, I'm applying for a job, what paperwork would I need? So the first thing that you would need is a cover letter. So with that, you would need to include your contact information and how you will follow up, what job you're applying for, and where you found your information. So whether that be a flyer, website, etc., what you have to offer the business. So that is where you would mention your strengths and your skills that you would bring to the table. And then you want to make sure that you mention specifically how your skills, sorry, my computer's blocking the screen, how your skills and experience match the job. And then lastly, you want to go into detail about the information in your resume. So I have included a cover letter example here. So I just found this one off of the internet and I thought it was a pretty good example to use. So as you guys can see, the person included their address, their phone number, and their email, which are key points to your cover letter. So they included the date that they wrote the person who they're writing because they're interested in the job. So they put her name, her position, the place that she works, the address. So she addresses her and then she says why she's reaching out. She's looking for a cashier position. And then she also mentioned where she found it. Like we said before, that's very important. So then she goes into her skills and her experience and why she thinks she's a perfect candidate for this job position. So she begins listing her skills and says that she's great with customer service, timeliness, and she has great communication skills. And then she also lists her qualities. So as we see that she's a multitasker. She can do great in fast-paced environments. She's able to respond to the customer's needs with understanding. She's a team player, and she's great with math. So with this, you always want to make sure that when you're listing your qualities and your skills, you're not just listing things that you know that you're good at. You want to make sure that you're listing things that are relevant to your job position. So if you are applying to be a lifeguard, for example, you don't want to put, oh, well, I'm good at math, because that's not relevant to your job position. And then so she closes out her letter by thanking her for considering her for the position, which we want to make sure that we're thanking them because we always want to remain respectful and professional. And then she says that she hopes to speak with her soon. And then she closes out with her closing remark, which is sincerely. Um, that's kind of my go-to for closings. It's kind of traditional. Of course, there are tons of other ones that you can use, but that's pretty traditional. And then so this is a digital cover letter. So that's why her name is italicized. But obviously, if you are writing on a physical cover letter, then you would just have your signature and then she has her printed name. So that is a cover letter example. So next, I would think this is probably the most important piece of paperwork that you need for your job application. So you have your resume. I'm not sure if everyone has one, but if you are 16, you should probably go ahead and start making one now because 16 is the working age in the United States. And I'm sure we would all love to have a job, if not a summer job, a job during the school year. So definitely go ahead and get started on your resume. And not only will you need it for your jobs, but you'll need it for your college application. So definitely go ahead and get a head start on those. So on your resume, you would need to include your education. And this is where a lot of people go wrong because if you're in high school, a lot of times people like to put all of their education. So they start with elementary school, go to middle school, and then go to high school. But the thing is, jobs are not looking at your elementary school or your middle school education. They only care about your high school education. So you want to make sure when you're filling out your resume that you only put the most relevant form of education. So if you're in high school, it would be high school. If you are in college, you can put high school and college, or you can just put your college education. So next, you would put your extracurricular activities, past work experience if you have any, and that would be both formal and informal, any volunteer work that you have, any achievements, so that would be leadership roles, awards, etc., and any relevant skills. And again, we want relevant skills that are pertaining to the job position in hand. So next, I have an example of a good resume. So this person's name is Steven Student. As we can see, he put his address, his cell phone number, and his email. So he has all of his contact information and it's right at the top, so there's no confusion for the employer. Next, he has his qualifications. And so he puts his communication skills, teamwork, mathematics, and his technical proficiencies. So as we can see, everything is catered to the job position that he's looking for. He didn't just list things that he's good at. So he made sure to put that he's an A+ math student, and he's certified in Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. And it's very easy for him to master new software systems. So again, education, he only put high school education, which is good. Like we talked about, you only want the most relevant form of information. And then right under that, he put his achievements. So he's an honor roll, National Honor Society, co-captain of the boys swim team, debate team, math club, and a student math mentor. And lastly, on his resume, he included his experience. So this is a very good resume because not only did he include the job position that he had, but he also included where he worked and a job description of the position that he had. And along with that, he made sure to list what he learned from that position and how that will help him in his future jobs. So along with being a gardener, he was also a volunteer for Habitat for Humanity. And again, he included a wonderful job description as well as what he learned and what he can bring to the table. So now we have a bad example of a resume. So this person's name is Emily Example. And right off the bat, I'm looking at her contact information. So yes, she has her phone number, but a lot of the things are blank and you really only need your phone number, your address, your name, and your email. So there really shouldn't be anything blank. Along with that, this is a little bit hard to see, but if you look closely, her email says Emily likes to party. So the problem with that is that you need a professional email as well as a personal email. So she obviously put down her personal email. And like I said, I know for me, I made my first email when I was 13, and it starts with the word magical. And I made sure not to put that on my college applications or whenever I apply to jobs, because that's my personal one, not my professional one. So that's her first mistake, is that she put her personal email. Next, her skills, everything looks good right there. But then we get to her education. So we did talk about this. She put her elementary school, middle school, and high school information when she only needs the most relevant one, which is her high school education. So after that, um, she actually put down her why she wants the job, which is her objective. I wouldn't say put this on a resume, because you're going to be sending it out to so many different companies. And you really want to say why you want the job for your interview. You don't want to tell them ahead of time. And furthermore, she put that she just wants to be successful and move up in her career to make a lot of money. That reason is not a good reason, although it might be realistic for her. Um, it's kind of one of those things where everyone doesn't need to know. So I definitely would not want my employer to know that I only want the job so I can make a lot of money. And furthermore, she misspelled successful. So we don't want any grammatical errors on our resume. I promise you, you automatically get docked a few points if you have any grammatical errors. And then next we have her experience. So this is good. She does have work experience. The only problem is that she did not list where she works. She just put the city. If you're a pet sitter, usually you're working for some form of a company. It could be self-owned, but she should still put that down. And along with that, her description it's definitely lacking description, just that. So she just put that she walked and fed dogs. I mean, obviously that's a given. We know what a pet sitter does, but in addition to that, there's no complete sentences or anything. I definitely would not take this resume seriously. She definitely needs to add more description to her job description. And just like the other person did, it would be great if she could list what she gained from that and how that applies to her newfound job that she's looking for. So she did the same thing with her food bank volunteer position. And so she put the date that she started working, which is good. She didn't do that in the other one. But the same thing, the job description is lacking description. Again, not a complete sentence. It's really not, if I'm looking at this, I'm not understanding what she gained from it and how that's helping me understand her better as a person. So lastly, she put her awards and achievements. That side looks good. Overall, I would say this resume definitely um, looks terrible in comparison to the other one. I think with a little bit of help, she would definitely get a job, but there are certain areas that she definitely needs to work on. So next, you need a reference sheet. Now, personally, when I began looking for jobs, I did not know what this was. So for a reference sheet, you need your name, your address, and your phone number, and that should all be at the top of the sheet. You should also include a heading titled references or professional references. Either one is fine. And then under that heading, you need to include each reference's name, their email, phone number, and the relationship to you if requested. Um, when you fill out a reference sheet, most companies will ask what is their relationship to you. And with that, you references are typically people outside of your family. Most companies will want them to not be like your mom and dad, aunt, uncle, anyone that's not in your family. So I would say we're all teenagers, so I would say use like a coach or a teacher. You could use a youth group leader, someone that knows you personally, but not on a familial level. And then, so typically you need a minimum of 3 references for most companies. Some of them ask for more, but most of them only ask for 3. And then lastly, you want to make sure to provide summer contact information or other pertinent information if your resources will be difficult to contact. So by that, I mean, for example, last summer I applied for a job at a country club and I used my teacher as a reference. Obviously, she's a teacher, so she's not going to be using her professional email during the summer. So I provided her personal email instead. So that's what is meant by summer contact information. So I've included a reference sheet example, and I have highlighted here what's most important, just because there are a few other things on here that don't really need to be on here. So this is a student, and they did a good job by including their address, email, and their phone number. And then, like I said, they have the title that says references. And again, that can be either references or professional references. It really doesn't matter. And again, so they included their first name and their last name. Then they put their title, which would be their job position currently, their work address, and they have it listed twice. You really only need one work address. You don't need to put two down. And then they have their phone number, email, and then their relationship to you. So again, you could say that's my teacher, coach, youth group leader, whatever is applicable to your situation. And then I did not highlight the years known because that's not really what's important here on a job application. They really just want to know what is their relationship to you. So then at the bottom here, they have a few bullet points. So again, like I said, there's usually 3 to 5 references. You should have 3 definitely, not on speed dial, but like ready to go for you. 3 people that you know are going to do a really good job of recommending you, and they're just, they're going to speak highly of you. The other 2 are extra. I would say just in case someone's not able to do it, just have 2 on backup. Um, and then again, oh yes, it's very important to ask your references for permission. You don't want to just put down their information and then your job's going to call them and say, well, they put you down. They're not going to know what to do. So definitely make sure that you ask your references for permission to be a reference. Yeah, and then don't include your reference sheet unless your desired job asks you to do it. But you should still have one ready just because most of them will ask you to include a reference sheet. Okay, so we have completed our first step. So now we are going to move on to reviewing our paperwork. So we're going to review the application and then send it in. So I have an example of a job application here. So this one's a physical job application, not a digital one. So automatically we see they included their name, address, phone number, all of the most important information. And then for their job position, they're not very specific on what they want to do. So they kind of left it open to anything. They want to work part-time, and then they have their desired wage that they would want to be paid. It's definitely important to keep in mind that that is not always going to be honored, but it is still, of course, always on a job application. So here we see, have you been employed here before? They put yes, but then they didn't put when. If you don't know when you were employed at the job, it's probably best not to put anything at all. So if you don't remember, just put no. Um, and then it says, do you have any friends or family? These are just common questions that are usually on job applications. And then so they have employment history. So this would kind of be on your resume already, but job applications do ask for that sometimes. So they filled everything out. Everything looks good until you get to the bottom where it says the reason for leaving. So they put that their boss was a jerk. That's why they left. Now, if I'm an employer and I'm reading this, I'm not going to take this person seriously. If you really did have a problem at your last place of employment and it's this serious, I would say not to lie about it, but definitely just read between the lines a little bit. So I would say that, oh, there was just a personal problem, but don't go into detail about what it was. Again, at the next employment history example at the bottom, they put they didn't like waiting on customers outside. If I'm reading this and I'm an employer, I'm not going to want to hire this person because they're automatically already complaining about a job. So next we are going to go ahead and move on to our first Q&A session. Mr. Quincy Horton, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Minla. I apologize, my video isn't working right now, but my name is Quincy Horton. I have known Minla for a long time, and I pretty much started my professional career around the age of a lot of you guys, where at 16 years old, I was presented an opportunity with a internship at National Oilwell Varco, which is an oil well manufacturing company here in Houston, but it's nationwide. And I took advantage of that opportunity. And um, once I did that, I pretty much stayed on at National Oilwell Varco for about 9 years, all throughout my senior year of high school, as well as my collegiate experience. And the week before I graduated college, I was offered a position within HR, and I took advantage of that opportunity. And yeah, so I've been in HR for about 5 years now, and I love every minute of it. And I'm excited to kind of give you guys advice on recruiting or anything that you need with your resumes.
Thank you so much for your introduction and thank you so much for being here today. So, I do have three quick questions that I would like to ask you.
Absolutely.
So, the first one is, how did you complete your job search? What steps did you take to do so? And where did you look?
So with my job search really stemmed from networking. And there's, of course, the common saying, sometimes it's not what you know, but it's who you know. So at a very young age, my mother and a lot of my family members put me in networking opportunities where I was able to meet a lot of people that were successful, a lot of people that had similar goals and similar career objectives that I would like to have in the future. And so just kind of taking that first step of introducing myself, making sure that within every opportunity I introduce myself with a professional manner, let a lot of adults and a lot of people in professional settings know that I am serious about, one day having a career and kind of advancing in life. So just making sure that I did that properly. And then I also wanted everyone that I came in contact with to understand that I'm willing to work hard at whatever I do. And so sometimes you might not know exactly what you want to do, but within whatever you are doing, make sure you give it 100%. And so just being task driven, understanding kind of like what you said earlier, reading between the lines and understanding what exactly people are expecting. And a lot of people are expecting success. So just making sure that you have that correct attitude. And then lastly, one thing that I did to just make sure that I stood out from a lot of people was I made sure to utilize my strengths to uplift where I needed to improve. And so whether that's lacking on the technical front, I always made sure that my communicative skills were proper, making sure that I looked the part, making sure that I took initiative, and then that way I can learn either as I go or taking that extra step to learn behind the scenes to make sure that I was doing what I needed to do. And also, my last bit of advice would be to utilize Google Maps. So if you're in an area at wherever you are, utilizing Google Maps and looking at the organizations that are around you in your surrounding areas, check out their websites. Just go to their career pages and see what exactly do they have listed, and just do your research on their websites. And that, I think that's a very important step within job search. That's how I actually got to the job that I have right now.
Okay, thank you so much. So
No problem.
moving on to the second question. I know personally for me, so I applied to be a camp counselor this summer. I unfortunately never got around to filling out the application,
Mhm.
but when I was filling it out or I was looking at the job description, they were saying that they would prefer someone who has camp counselor experience. So moving on to my question, if someone doesn't have any prior work experience, what should they put on their resume?
Well, it was very interesting looking at your PowerPoint. You actually mentioned it. Instead of experience, list out your skills. Skills are just as important as experience, whether that's technical skills or communicative skills, leadership skills. You have to think of like the bigger picture within your resume. Your resume is really just an audition tape, or it's that first impression. So listing out the core abilities, the core strengths that you have within your resume can go a long way. Um, and one thing that you also touched on was keeping a reference sheet. And also, I strongly suggest having letters of recommendation. Those go a long way as well. They're very important to this day, especially with COVID going on and the job market being a little bit more strict. Letters of recommendation show that you have had networking experiences and you have people that are willing to vouch for you. And so, even if you don't have the exact experience that is on the job description, you have someone there that is saying that you're capable of all of these other things and they've seen it. And so that helps as well as a cover letter.
Okay, thank you so much. So I have one final question for you.
Mhm,
So you're in HR, so your job is to read applications. So what
definitely.
are the most common errors that you see in resumes that you receive?
I would say within the past 4 years, I actually have a top five that I like to share with people. Um, Number one, the top five errors that I have seen in a resume is when an applicant doesn't submit their phone number or email address. I can say in the recruiting world, in talent acquisition, that is such a big no-no, because if you have an incredible resume but we don't have a way to reach you, that's the worst feeling on our part. And it kind of makes you look bad in the sense of you forgot the biggest piece of information. Number two being misspelled words, like you mentioned. And it even goes more into effect when you misspell words that are skills that are being recruited for. So if you, I've seen a lot of people that misspell Microsoft. I've seen a lot of people that misspell Adobe, especially like when you're looking for marketing or creative roles. Make sure you correctly spell the applications that you're using on computers, correctly spell any type of machinery that you use when creating. It's definitely important. One of my biggest pet peeves is misspelled words that are applications or softwares. Another thing, over analyzing word experience. I highly suggest 1 to 2 sentences per point within your resume. So when you're listing out or when you're describing your previous experiences or your skills, just a quick 1 to 2 sentences will do. Don't do a paragraph of things that you've done within um, that specific task, because it can become a lot for the recruiter to read. We're usually just glancing over looking for keywords. So make sure you get straight to the point. Another thing I would say, make sure if you include your address, which you don't have to include your absolute, like your whole address, but make sure you include which city that you live in. It helps a lot, especially if you're looking for a role that is outside of your city. A lot of recruiters want to know if we need to do relocation, if we need to move people. It's very important for us to have that as well. And last but not least, including personal information. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that I've seen people do recently. I've seen people include their bank account numbers, their social security numbers, your driver's license. Please do not include that on your resume. That is information that is very sensitive, and only you should have that. Don't include that unless you are being offered the job and it's within the pre employment. And so those are the top five common errors.
Thank you so much. You had such great answers to my questions. If anyone has any questions for Mr. Quincy, you can put them down in the chat, and I'm sure that he would be more than happy to answer them. So
Absolutely.
we are moving right along. We're going to go ahead and move into step 3. So we've completed step 2, which is reviewing paperwork. So we reviewed our application, sent it in, we're ready to go. So now is moving on to the actual preparation for the interview. So we're going to start preparing our responses. So you should start that by practicing responding to common interview questions so you can be prepared for your interview. So section 2 is called interview information. So I've actually included some common interview questions in this PowerPoint and in this section, and we're just going to go over some good ways on how to respond to them. So the most common interview question is tell me about yourself, and I guarantee you this is how your interview is going to start. So this is where you would make sure that you introduce yourself already, if you haven't already. And so for this example, and I think most of the examples going forward, I set this up to where I myself would be applying for a job in a coffee shop. So the question would be, tell me about yourself. So I would say, hello, my name is Minla, and I really like to bake and make coffee. During quarantine, I just kind of picked it up and then I tried a few recipes and they actually turned out to be pretty successful. So I decided, why not put my skills to use and find a job that supports what I want to do? So next, you want to discuss your work ethic. So this is where you would say, I do XYZ pretty well. I'm a great communicator. I consider myself to be, etc., whatever is applicable to your situation. Um, so my answer to the question would be, I consider myself to be very hardworking and make sure to commit to the task at hand. Adding to this, I completely understand that people can be extra angry in the morning, especially when it comes to their food or coffee. So I will make certain that I attend to customers' demands in a timely manner and with a great attitude in order to provide the best customer service. So without my response, I definitely touched heavily on customer service because that is something that is so important, and not only the restaurant industry, but also if you're working in retail, that is like the golden nugget when it comes to employers. Customer service is definitely needs to be number one in your response. So the next interview question that I have is, what are your strengths? So this is kind of where you would discuss your skills. Again, make sure those skills are relevant to your job position that you are looking for. Um, so I just put my two biggest strengths are being detail oriented and easily adapting to new methods. This is especially important for this job because, etc. So you want to make sure that not only are you just listing your strengths, your skills, whatever you're good at, but you want to make the employer understand what it is about your skills and you that would make them want to hire you and that you bring to the table and that would really just complement the job position that you are looking for. And so I also put a tip for answering this question. Never list or say that being a fast learner is one of your strengths. Employers hear this and automatically think, okay, well, they're a fast learner, but I don't or I won't have time to train them. Why hire them when I can find someone else that is already experienced? So make sure you don't put down fast learner. And then I have, so what are your weaknesses? And then I actually put the key to answering this question. You don't just want to ramble on about things that you struggle with, but you want to make sure that you're preparing for this question by identifying weaknesses that still communicate strength. So for example, I put that I have a hard time letting go of a project. If an employer hears that, they're thinking, okay, well, this person's committed. I don't have to worry about them giving up or anything. And then another example that I have is I sometimes have trouble asking for help. So with answering this, you kind of have to flip it around to be something positive. So I put, if you know it has been difficult to ask for help in the past, explain why you know it's beneficial and the ways you have tried to improve the skill. So again, the key with answering the what are your weaknesses question is to take a weakness and flip it around and talk about not only that you're working on it, but how you're just trying to improve it in the long run. Okay, so we have completed our third step. We are moving on to the final step of job application readiness. So we've done our paperwork, we have prepared our responses. Now it's time to look the part. So before you look the part, we don't just want to show up in anything that we want to wear. I would say definitely do research on the business's dress code and dress accordingly. So this is a lot, but I promise it's very helpful. So I have that a tip first should be to research the business's dress code before your interview. And you can easily do this by checking their website, social media pages, or calling their HR department. So then I have, remember, you might have to dress differently for various workplaces. So an example would be wear formal business attire for a corporate position or internship at a large company. And for less formal workspaces and positions, your best bet is to dress business casual. This is also the attire for most office spaces and businesses that don't require uniforms. So going back to dressing differently for various workspaces, obviously, if you are applying for a job to be a lifeguard, you're going to dress differently than if you were doing an internship at a company for the summer. So don't show up to flip-flops when you are applying for the internship, and don't show up in a suit when you're applying to be a lifeguard. So another tip is it's better to overdress than underdress. It's much better to be in a full-blown suit and tie with dress shoes than to be dressed in just pants, a belt, and a tank top. Another tip is if your religion or medical condition, sorry guys, if your medical condition or religion prevents you from being able to follow any part of your employer's dress code, make sure to let them know ahead of time, and then they will make a note of it and you won't be penalized for anything. Okay, so this is my favorite part of the presentation. So we are going to go over how to dress for business casual settings and business professional settings. So I actually made these models myself that you will see down the road. So the typical business casual attire for women, the first thing we're going to start out is the jewelry. We want to keep it pretty simple. Simple jewelry is kind of the standard for any professional business setting. So you want to keep it minimum to stud earrings or tiny hoops that you have, or pearl earrings. Any of those simple jewelries would be good. And then for the clothing, you want to make sure that it's casual but professional. So we don't want to show up again in just shorts and a shirt. That's too casual. So a blouse that not only covers your shoulders but covers your chest is always your best bet. And then you can always put a blazer on top. We won't be mad at you. And then you can, acceptable bottoms would be slacks. Those are also your best bet. I wouldn't put my money on anything else. Slacks and blouses that cover everything should be your go-to. And then closed-toed black shoes are also a go-to. We definitely want to keep it easy and simple rather than getting in trouble for breaking any dress code rules. Then for the men, I have, again, casual but professional. So I would say a regular white collar shirt without a tie is good, black pants, slacks, and then some closed-toed black dress shoes. Perfect, ready to go. And then I have something a little bit more dressy. And so he's actually wearing jewelry. So I put a watch on him because I know people like wearing watches. If you're going to wear a watch, again, we want to keep jewelry to a minimum. And I would just make sure that the watch isn't too flashy or anything. And so again, casual but professional. So jackets are not required for business casual. Cardigans with collared shirts and ties are acceptable. So if you would like to do that, of course, that's great. And then again, acceptable bottoms would be business pants, pressed slacks, or khakis. And then both of them are wearing dark professional looking closed-toed shoes. So those are great. And then I actually put a tip. So I said, make sure that your belt and shoes are the same color. We do not want to show up with brown shoes and a black belt, vice versa. So those are for the men. So for women, now we're moving on to a more professional setting. So typical attire for business professional for women, again, like I said, simple jewelry is kind of the key to both settings. So I put a plain pearl necklace on her. If you're going to wear a necklace, it can be a pearl necklace or a necklace with a tiny pendant. Again, we don't want to draw too much attention to ourselves. Dark pantsuits or dark skirt suits are good either way, and dark closed-toed shoes are always preferred. Now, the problem with the skirt suits is that I know sometimes women like to wear things a little bit shorter, but in a professional setting, you want to make sure that it's either at your kneecap or right below it. So again, we don't want to get in trouble for dress code. And so I also put, if you're wearing anything other than dress pants or slacks, you might consider wearing pantyhose. And then if you do, make sure that they're nude or a neutral color. And so for the men, business professional, I always say you should dress like you're going to a gala. Suit and tie is pretty self-explanatory. But with the suits, you want to make sure that they're dark. So I always say with suits in a professional setting, you want to make sure that they're pin colors. So standard pen colors are blue and black ink. So dark blue, dark black, and then dark gray, obviously, should be go-to. If you want to wear a lighter suit, that's definitely more casual than professional. So maybe in a business casual setting, but for business professional, we want to make sure that we're wearing darker colored suits. And then again, dark closed-toed shoes are key. Okay, guys, so we have successfully prepared for our job interview. We are ready to look the part. So I have included a list of companies and businesses that are hiring in Houston. And if you guys want to take a screenshot, I'm going to leave it up so that you can. So like I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, 16 years old is the minimum age that you can work in most states, I think. It is in Houston, and so I have Chick-fil-A, Cane's, H-E-B, Target, Kroger, Chipotle, Sonic, Foot Locker, Champs, and Jamba Juice. And I tried to include not only places that I like, but I know places that I know a lot of teenagers go to. And so, of course, I included the job positions and the age that you would need to complete that position. And so while you guys are taking your screenshots or jotting any information down, I also wanted to talk about the city of Houston and how they have Hire Houston Youth. So this program has been in effect for a few years now, and they are catered to teens ages 16 to 24. So that would be in our age range. And they've helped thousands of teens and young people get summer jobs / internships. And the good thing about this program is that they have so many positions available in retail, the restaurant industry, and in STEM. And so many more industries, but I just included those three. So lastly, we are going to move on with our final session with our other HR professional, Miss Jacqueline. Miss Jacqueline, would you like to unmute yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing? My name is Jacqueline Ware Blackman, and I have been in the HR world longer than I'd like to even think about, longer than most of you have been born. I have a degree in business management, and I kind of landed in HR years ago back when I worked for AFLAC. And I became a manager in corporate training and development after about a year as a corporate trainer. I went on to be an HR assistant after moving back here to Houston, and assisted the HR director for one of the major transit companies here in Houston. And at that job, I did a lot of interviewing there because, of course, HR is the face of the organization in terms of getting your foot in. Eventually, I moved on to National Oilwell Varco. Sounds familiar, same place Quincy worked. And I started there in a group called Special Projects. And Special Projects was actually under the HR umbrella as well. And so in my position there, I eventually landed in project management because being in Special Projects, everything that I did either had something to do with a system implementation, process improvement, helping to support each of the various HR work streams, with recruiting being one of those areas of work stream. Currently, I am an HR project manager and an interim director with a boarding school in Lawrenceville, New Jersey. So supporting a lot of people that are your age right now as I support the schools. So I have been with them since last year, and I actually work remote for them. I was working remote prior to the pandemic, and I'm working remote now. So looking forward to addressing any questions you all have for me.
Okay, thank you so much for being here and for introducing yourself. So I do have another set of 3 questions for you. So the first one is, can you give us a rundown on what the appropriate attire for a job interview would be for your place of work?
Okay. And that's always a good question. And you just shared some really, really good information, Minla. And I definitely agree with everything that you showed in terms of do's and don'ts for dress wear. And in my organization that I'm in, as I just mentioned, I am with a boarding school, and so it's pretty much even though it's not a corporate organization in terms of faculty and staff, it is very much a corporate attire. It is a business casual attire, but with more of an emphasis on business. And that's just because it's an environment where we are engaging with professors, throughout the day. We're engaging with other employees who work in the organization. Most companies now do have a business casual environment. And so what I like to always tell people, and one of the things that I have always lived by, is not to dress by the job, dress for the job you have, but dress for the job that you want. And you really can't start that at at too young of an age. Even coming in, between the ages of 16 and 18, or, between the ages of 25 and 30, you still want to make certain that you're very polished coming into an organization. And after you get the job, it's one thing to show up and look good for the interview, but you want to also make yourself more marketable even in your organization. And so you want to do things that set you apart. You want to do things that set you apart with your, in terms of your work ethic, the product that you produce, the service that you produce, and also with the way that you are communicating and presenting yourself. Because, at the end of the day, you're there representing the company.
Thank you so much. So I have one final question for you. I actually asked the same to Mr. Quincy earlier. So what are the most common errors that you see in the resumes that you receive?
Yeah, so a couple of things that you and Quincy both mentioned are one in particular that is just taboo, and that is poor grammar and misspelled words and things like that. We are in a very digital age, and so most of the time when we are writing anything, even as we're typing into our smartphones, we have autocorrect, we have spell check, and we have grammar check. And so definitely take advantage of those things. And I also feel that when words are misspelled, when the grammar is wrong, and also just when the whole layout of the resume is wrong in terms of mixed fonts, inconsistent bullet types, and things like that, I tend to have to really look beyond those things to see if this is a qualified candidate, because what it initially tells me is lack of attention to detail. And I don't care what type of job you get. If you get any of those positions that Minla just had listed on the previous screen, you're going to have to pay attention to details. If you're proofing something, if you're preparing something, no matter what you do, there's a certain amount of details that's involved. And when I see a resume that is halfway put together, it translates to me that there's some inconsistency with the amount of detail. Another thing that I caution anyone on resumes is falsifying things. If you present information on your resume in terms of, a graduation date or a school that you attended or any types of certifications, you want to make certain that that information is correct. Because once again, we live in a world where technology is at our fingertips. For instance, I am a project management professional. If you look me up on LinkedIn, that's one of the initials behind my name, PMP. And so it is important that I keep up my credentials as a PMP, or else I don't need to have that on my resume, right? Because with that being on my resume, a person can go into the database with the Project Management Institute and verify whether or not I'm actually an active PMP, holder. And that can apply, to anything. And so, even if it's for something that is inactive at the time, but you feel that it's a certification that still shows that at some point you mastered that experience, you may want to just indicate, that it's active, or not even put in inactive certifications on your resume at all. And so, yeah, expired certifications, inconsistent font, and typos. And also, you want a clean resume. You want your resume to be succinct, as Quincy was saying, where you only have just a couple of sentences or bullet points behind some of the things that you want to speak to, but you want it to be succinct. You don't want it to be a book, and you want it to have plenty of white space. The most important thing is that you're calling out what your skills are, as Quincy said. One of the things that I also see is when I get a resume and it looks like I'm just looking at a job description, right? It looks like someone literally copied and pasted their previous job description into a resume. Your resume is supposed to tell something about you. It's supposed to tell about what you did at those jobs, right? And so you want to speak to those things. You want to take those things that may be a part of your job description and then speak to how you accomplish those things at that job. And keep in mind that if you're speaking about your current job, you want to stay in the current tense throughout your description. And if you're speaking about your previous jobs or your previous volunteer service or anything like that, you want to make certain you're using the correct tense with that. And then anytime that you can quantify things, I recommend that. And I know that some of the callers and most of the callers on this webinar or this workshop are young, but it's still not too early to start quantifying things and making that a habit, right? Because what it says is, yeah, I had a lifeguard job over the last 3 summers or whatever. And you can also say that you have 160 hours of lifeguard, of being a lifeguard, or 160 hours of training for something. If you volunteered, you want to indicate, quantify your volunteer hours. Or if you worked at the mall, you can say, I increased sales over a 3-month period by 5%, 10%, or whatever that is. That's a good habit to get in, because there are some people that really, really look to see that you quantify things. And, hey, if you made those accomplishments to those organizations, you are, more within your right to toot your own horn. So definitely start getting into the habit of that.
Okay, thank you so much. I did actually skip over one question, but this will be the last one. So I wanted to know if you have any advice for someone who is trying to effectively balance work and personal time.
Oh yeah. So that's really a challenge. And I think that's a challenge, no matter, what age you are, because right now, if you're young and if you continue to work, throughout the summer, then you're not only working, but you're back in school and you have your family life. If you're a working adult, you've got your job, you've got your family, you've got, your own well-being that you need to pay attention to. And so one of the things that I have done, forever, and I continue to do certainly as a project manager, I manage myself. I manage myself intentionally. And if you do that work up front, then you can relax and it's not, such a chore later on. And so you got to kind of, create some consistencies, right? And you need to write it down. And if that means writing down the time that you're going to carve out for your personal time, you need to do that as well until that becomes a habit, right? And you need to make certain that you are taking time for that every day. Now, if you go to work and you're, say if you're a salaried employee, meaning an employee who doesn't get, paid by the hour, but you get paid like the same thing every week. You may have a tendency to, just want to, goof off or handle some other things, that are not work related. People have days where they blow things off. Well, then that means something is going to sacrifice later on. That means you're going to have to make up that time later on, and that's most likely going to come out of your personal time. So it's important to just really try to get yourself into a schedule, because once you do so, I think you'll make your life, a lot easier. You hear people say all the time, I work hard and I play hard. And the only way that you can do that is to create that balance, but be very intentional about it. When you're working, say now, and if your job allows you to have, most jobs give you either 30 minutes to an hour for a lunch break, and then you may have 2 15-minute breaks without the day. Take those breaks, walk away, get away from your screen. If you can, go outside and get some fresh air. Make certain that you do that. And I just say that you if you can work, if you can get in a habit where you can complete what needs to be done within the 8 hours of the day, and then you can relax, the rest of the day, and you can relax on your weekend. So the thing to balancing is you have to be intentional. You have to be intentional, and then you'll just kind of create the habit of having that type of work-life balance.
Thank you so much for being here and for your wise responses. I really appreciate them. So everyone, we are almost finished with the webinar. But now I think it is everyone's favorite time. We are going to do a Kahoot. I will get the code ready to go in just 1 minute. Give me 1 second, everyone is loading. Okay, if someone could let me know if they could see the screen, I just want to make sure everything is visible.
Not now.
So there's the code. For those who don't know how Kahoot works, if you could just open a browser on whatever device you're on and just type in KAHOOT.IT, and it should take you right to the Kahoot, and then the numbers at the top, you just put those in as the game pin. And I'll give you guys a few more minutes to sign in. And for those of you who don't know how to operate Kahoot, I will read the question out loud and then you guys can just put your answer in the chat. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and get started with the Kahoot in 1 second. Okay, so the first question says, what type of attire is being shown? So this is multiple choice, guys. You just pick one of the answers. Ooh, so I see that was a tie. So that was business casual. All right, Kaylee on the leaderboard, we see you. So for those of you who can't see, it says, how many references, if any, do you typically need for a job application? Look at that. Everyone got it right. I'm so proud of you guys. So yes, like I said earlier, it is a minimum of 3. So make sure you have those 3 references ready to go. All right, Kaylee is still in first place. Kristen, Kendall, TDG, sorry, and whoever T is catching up. Okay, so it says true or false, jeans are acceptable to wear to a job interview. Okay, I'm so glad that no one missed this question. That is correct. Jeans are not acceptable to wear to a job interview. All right, guys, I'm liking the way the leaderboard is looking. So the question says, what should you do if your phone goes off in an interview? So the answer choices are answer it, I don't know, send a quick text message saying you can't talk right now, or don't answer it / put it on do not disturb. Everyone thankfully got that correct. So before you go to a job interview, you should just go ahead and turn off your phone. Don't even have it on. If you don't want to turn it off completely, go ahead and put it on do not disturb. We don't want to get any calls or disruptions during our interview. All right, Kaylee is taking first place. So for this question, there are actually 2 correct answer choices. So the question is, how early should you arrive for your interview? So the options are 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, or 1 hour. Yes, okay, so this is a little bit of a mixed answer question here, so we definitely need to go over the correct answer. So I chose to have 2 correct answers for this question. A 15 to 30-minute interval is probably what you should be shooting for. 5 minutes is definitely not the correct answer because nowadays 5 minutes means you are not on time, but that's when your interview starts. So 5 minutes means you're late. You want to make sure that you are arriving about 15 to 30 minutes early, just so you can have ample time to go over any interview questions or just get any anxiety or nerves out. In 1 hour, you can arrive an hour early, but you don't want to arrive too early and just sit in the parking lot and wait. So yeah, 15 to 30-minute interval is the correct answer. Oh, look at that. Kendall has taken first place. Kaylee, what happened? Okay, guys, we have one more question. Okay, so the question is another true or false question. A reference sheet goes before a cover letter. Okay, one person got that wrong. It's okay, guys. So the answer is false. A cover letter goes before a reference sheet. So again, just a reminder, a cover letter is the first thing that you're going to want to do for your paperwork. So that goes before everything else. So let's look at the leaderboard. All right, Kaylee got third. Kendall got second. And Kristen takes first place. Everyone give Kristen a round of applause. Okay, so we are going to go back to the PowerPoint in 1 second. Okay, can everyone see my screen? Nope, okay, 1 second. Oh, yes, you can see, great, great, okay. We are almost finished, guys. Our sessions are finished, but I just wanted to open the floor to anyone that had any questions. Ms. Jacqueline and Mr. Quincy, if you guys have any closing remarks for job seekers or any parting words that you would like to say, the floor is now open to you guys.
The only last words that I would like to leave, because I think you've done a wonderful job, Minla, as well as the information that Quincy has shared, is it's never too young. You're never too young for you to start getting a mentor and like a career mentor. And this person may change throughout the course of your career, but for this point in time, it's always good to have someone that you can bounce questions off of before you make certain types of decisions concerning the job that you have, or how to handle a difficult, situation. It's always good to have that mentor that you can reach out to that, may have a little bit more experience, that you have, that is going to give you some, good direction, some sound answers, and really be truthful with you. And thanks for the thumbs up, Miss Washington. Yes. So those are my closing words.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off of that. I think that's great advice. A mentorship is definitely something that is beneficial, especially during these times. And just going back to what I said about networking, making sure that every opportunity you can to meet someone that can help you get to where you want to go, treat that with just the utmost importance. And just also keep faith first as well, just making sure that you understand that a lot of these things we can't control, and so you just have to pray about it and stay positive, bring that positive energy into this, this very important part of your life. And so thank you, Menla, for having me as well. I appreciate it. And if anyone needs any additional advice, feel free to give my information.
Yes, thank you guys so much for giving us all some guided wisdom. We have reached the end of the workshop. I have one last slide. So as I told everyone, this was for my Gold Award project for Girl Scouts. And so I have a few parting words myself. I just wanted to say thank you all so much for not only taking the time out to attend this today, but I do apologize for the technical difficulties. You guys did stay until the end, and that just means so much to me. You guys don't even know. But yes, I would also like to give a special thanks to my supervisor, Miss Nina Smith, my advisor, Miss Hattie Salisbury. Thank you so much for coming today. And of course, my parents. Thank you so much to everyone who has supported me. And I do have one last announcement. My project will be donated to the Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church High School Ministry so that they can further use this project to help all of the teens that will be involved just gain knowledge about the job application process. So yes. Oh, and Miss Jacqueline and Mr. Quincy, do you mind putting your contact information in the chat for anyone who might have any questions for you guys? Thank you so much. So yeah, I'm going to stick around and leave the Zoom open so they can go ahead and do that. But again, thank you guys so much for attending. And I hope whatever you learned today can be used in both your professional and personal lives. So yes, everyone have a great rest of your day. Thank you. Well, hello to the people who are left. Thank you guys so much for attending today. If everyone could unmute just so that we can all talk to each other, that would be great.
Great job, Minla. Great job. You did a great job. And glad to see that you were successful today.
Yeah. That was a really good PowerPoint, Mela. Very good.
No. Good job. Good job.
Thank you guys so much.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here, Minla. I gotta, take care of Mariah for a second, but I'll talk to you soon. Okay? Of
Bye. Thank you so much.
course, no problem.
Miss Salisbury, are you still there?